Thank you for staying with us. And as should be expected, I mean, Alera and I had to go through some trauma getting to the office this morning. So, well,
In
not
fact,
just us. There are others who are still going through.
my partner didn't bring his car.
No, I had to find one of those quick ways to get here, but I didn't fly. Anyway, so managing the road traffic challenges in Nigeria. So the festive season's over, yes, and activities are in top gear for everyone as they go about their regular hustle and bustle. The roads have now become busy and traffic is back in full force.
Tell me about it.
Also, the reconstruction of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway has resumed ahead, and of course, traffic on the highway would stretch to other parts of Lagos. To help us shed light on how to manage road traffic challenges, not just in Lagos, across the country, we have Mrs. Anthea Ekpa, who is a Director, Road Transport and Mass Transit Administration. She joins us from our studios in Abuja.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Here in Lagos, we have Mr. Kayode Okpeifa, who is a former Transport Secretary and a former Commissioner for Transport, Lagos State. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
And Samuel Odewumi is a Professor of Transportation at the Lagos State University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let me start out with... I wonder what I should start with.
Ladies
academic.
first.
Okay. Not after me.
Okay, after the men.
After the men. Dr. Ekpa, we're coming to you. Mr. Odewumi, let's look at transportation generally. From that point of view of research and all of that, what would you say it's been like managing transportation and traffic in Nigeria?
Well, when you manage transportation or traffic, although we normally say that transportation is the arteries through which all the life stream activities, socio-economic flows. And if there are cholesterol, grid points, gridlocks along those arteries, so you have cardiac arrest.
Oh dear.
Hold on.
Oh dear.
So just like the human beings are dealing with cholesterol,
yes.
we still have to deal with cholesterol in traffic.
That is it. And that is where when your arteries get blocked and you have them. But three essential things are important. You will manage the vehicle, I've said here before. You will manage the route, the road. You will manage the man. Those are the three variables that you'll be contending with whenever you are dealing with all aspects of transportation. So then maybe we'll take it from there. The road had issues, that is the route. But today we are talking about the road. It has issues, and that's extensive. Then about the type of vehicles, the machine, that's another feature which we can open and get into. Then the man, that's the most difficult one. The man, his skill, his values, his attitude on the road, it's even his attitude to take care of the machine that he is driving. His knowledge to understand the environment and the rules and to be able to abide with them. So that is the general overview of what you will be dealing with when you are dealing with theoretical issues about about transportation generally.
Okay, we'll come because we'll get back to you again. Now, so let's look at how we can bring in the other types of transportation to ease, because we're looking at managing the traffic. But let me get to Dr. Ekpa to tell us, in administering the transport and mass transit programs in Nigeria, would you say that we are there yet?
Oh, thank you very much, Nyota and Alero. No, I'll say we are not there yet, but we're getting there. The administration of the road transport sector has been on in the country since colonial days, as a matter of fact. But over time, there hasn't been proper coordination and perhaps also realization that road transportation goes beyond construction. Apparently, our focus over the years from our research and interaction with transporters and other sector operatives and stakeholders, most of them who have been in the sector for decades, have shown that over the years, especially in the last 20 years or thereabout, focus had been more on construction, on the hardware of the road, than on management. And I think Prof has started us very well by defining the three major content of the road transportation, which is the man, the driver, or rider, as the case may be, then the route, or the route as you may call it, the route, which is the corridor, the roads, the facility that you ride on, and then of course also the coordination of the road sector itself. So we haven't had appropriate focus on the road sector and its management. We have been building roads. We have been repairing roads. There are organizations, agencies set up for road management. We have FEMA, of course, our Minister of Works and Power. Minister of Works and Urban Development. Minister of Works and Minister of Works has been working on that. And what we have found, actually, is the fact that even though we have urbanization and development problems on the corridors, and we haven't had adequate content into the national development of the road transport sector and the coordination of its administration. But honestly, under this present administration, we have been able to redefine the content of the road transport sector, which is that we have gone to the international level. We are now looking at the national level, and with all the other sector agencies, we have now come to understand that road sector goes beyond, or road sector administration goes beyond construction. So we are talking with the United Nations. We have redefined that. We have developed a program. We have indeed, in the Ministry of Transportation, carved out a department for road transportation and mass transit administration, which is what I am the director. And what we have been doing, therefore, is to look at these three elements: the route, that is the road itself. How is the road managed? How do you bring the other content, which is the construction, and the utilization of the road together? We have also looked at the other element of what are the points, what are those things that affect the road, that make it impassable. We have the issues of congestion. Why do we have congestion on the road? You see, when you construct the road and you leave it and walk away without having a proper mechanism for managing how the road is used, then you have challenges. So that is where we are. And right now, I must tell you, and I congratulate the present government and especially our ministers for the focus that have been given on this element of road content and the utilization. And I must thank also all the road transport operators and many stakeholders who have supported us in the effort to redevelop the content of administration for the road. So our effort, therefore, is yielding some support, and is also yielding some dividends and achievements. And our colleagues all over the sector, or in all the sectors, including environment and the works content, and of course, safety and organization of its utilization and coordination by the FRSC and all of us, including also agencies of the Ministry of Environment, are working together, and ministries of national planning, among others, are all together working towards the improvement of administration.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ekpa. Thank you, Mrs. Ekpa. Let's come back to the studio and bring Mr. Okwefa in. Mr. Okwefa, the pressure on the roads, it seems to be getting worse with every new day, especially in Lagos. What are the things that are militating against us developing other means of transportation so that the pressure on the roads is actually reduced?
Thank you very much. Just like Dr. Mrs. Epa said, there has been progress over the years, and a lot of things are happening. There's also issue of perception too. We often tend to think other sectors are not being developed. They are also being developed, but there are other things bringing it down. She mentioned roads are being constructed, not properly constructed. Certain things are not in place. So we also need to understand that the ones we have developed, we need to make sure they are functional. And that is where you get to hear from states like Lagos talking about junction improvement, traffic improvement. That means those things, they might be good when they were constructed. With population, with other things, event has overtaken their usefulness, so you need to do something. However, in most climes, if they were properly planned, they might last for hundreds of years, their functionality. Now, talking of other mode, I'm aware, and whenever I hear people talk about develop the waterways in Lagos, that Lagos had actually developed its waterways. There are about 39 possible routes on the Lagos waterways. As far back as 2007, I know it used to be just about 300,000 people per month. It went as much as 2 or 3 million per month by the time we got to 2012, 2013. So that's the opposite.
So where is it now?
I'm not sure of the current figure now. Now, the major limiting factor in that sector, let me say, what was done was to dredge.
Yep.
See, the water is also, you have to carve a road on the water. It's not that the water is being able to just start. That would be chaotic. So like Lagos created a LASWA, they created a Lax Ferry. So you need institutions. You need a structure that is the institution. You need the legislation. You need appropriate laws to make institutional sustainability like safety and the rest and auditing. Then you need the processes. So Lagos created Lax Ferry to move people. They created a LASWA to regulate. Then you now have the private sector to bring in the ferry. There are people like Metro Ferry, Fiki, all of them, Tazan, the broad ferries. However, you have to talk about profitability. So the movement will be from Ikorodu access to Badagry at a stretch, now passing through Apapa, passing through Lagos Island. So you can't come from Ikeja. You cannot come from Abuleba. So those ones will still stay with road. So they also put in the issue of the rail. I think 5 or 7 lines. You have the green lines for Lekki. You have the blue lines for Kukumaiko. There are 4 centers. If you use Lagos, for example, you have the Ikorodu corridor, Badagry corridor, Abuleba Agege corridor.
When are we expecting this to come on stream?
The rail is already, as of 2015, the Lagos rail has been ready from Eric Moore to Mile 2. But you don't just put things on the road. You need to put in place the proper process. And that's what she was referring to. As at 2014, 13 or 14, I'm aware there was a national mass transit policy. I participated in it, shared by the then Vice President, Namadi Sambo. So what we need to do forward is to understand that a lot of things have gone on the paperwork, it's not actualization, and you need resources. So the private sector needs to come in provided there is that enabling environment. Transportation sector does not break even economically easily. It's more of a social sector to create an enabling environment for other sector to have a good return on investment. So if you leave it to just private sector to come in, they will not come in. Except you have created a structure that will make the sector
make their money back.
So if you build a rail, like Lagos is working on Red Line, Federal government is working on the same corridor. Lagos has done very well on the Blue Line, and with like what the governor said recently, I think by 2021 or so, that's going to move. Now, when you put up all these structures, it's capital incentive, that is operational cost is capital. So, and when investors come in, they look at the return on investment around 13%, and they look at the cost of borrowing money at around 20%. So you see, so the society should also be ready. That is capital. If you go to the Abuja Rail Masters that was completed 2018, the president commissioned it. That is from the airport down to the central business district, and from the central business district to areas like Kubwa. that is going towards Kaduna. I'm not talking about Abuja Kaduna rail now. There's another rail that takes you to Kubwa, and from
The mono.
Kubwa to Kubwa is the boundary of close to the boundary of FCT and Niger State on the way. So if you look at those rails, if you run it the way you just run it, it's not going to be economically viable. So government must be ready to put in resources. So where are those resources? So those are the challenges facing government, how to get the funds, and people don't give you loan for transport sector. They will, except you get good grants. And to get good grants, you need good governance. So otherwise, so government will have to use its own resources, like the last government in Lagos did, buying those buses. That was, to me, very nice investment. And like the current government in Lagos is also doing, to make sure that PRT corridor along, what do you call it, Lagos Badagry is put to use. Make sure the BRT corridor along Abulegba is put to use. Now, when you now leave, you now go to states like other parts of Nigeria, like you have in FCT. You will see that the FCT administration too is putting so much effort. They're now going to complete the last part of the Abuja rail corridor. They are putting up for construction in the rail corridor to Yanya. They are now building, the federal government is now building the Abuja to Kefi Road. That is Abuja Akwanga Kefi Road. That is taking you to where people call Yanya in Abuja, where a lot of the people in FCT live. So there are so many efforts, but they are capital intensive. And that's why, and the return on investment for a private sector participant is not that lucrative. So that is why the sector is slow. So we need a lot of government investment to bring. Now you also have NIWA at the national. There are issue of legislations as to the power of NIWA or power of state. You know what we went through in Lagos. But the federal government released, and they released about 4 or 5 jetties. They released the Oronshoki jetty. They released the Marina jetty, Tolu jetty, I think Badore jetty. So if the federal government too has to make sure that they liaise with states and allow the states to take control of the water resources, because there are a lot of constitutional issues that makes state. Then the issue of grants, there are more the federal grants to states who are ready or who need this investment. You cannot just be giving us money from Ministry of Works, the construct roads, Ministry of Transport, construct. There must be federal grants from those ministries to states to improve their transport infrastructure, like the roads, the waterways, and the railway, because the states don't have that much resources at hand for those improvements.
Okay, we'll be back in a moment to continue the conversation. We'll come back. Prof will be talking to us about, again, how to infuse all the other types of transportation into the Nigerian system. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Festus Akimboye sent in a message here. He says, on the 21st of December, it took me and my family over 5 hours to get to Moe from Lagos. And the chaos was caused by poor traffic management and bad attitude of many traffic participants. Now, many traffic participants, there includes the drivers and the passengers, as the case where we say it was painful. Prof, now, this is a major, major problem. Now, he's talking about Lagos, but there are other parts that are having traffic issues. Even Abuja, that used to be, I mean, everybody tells you it's a sweet, it's a thrill driving in Abuja. Now they tell you, the traffic in Abuja and all of that. I mean, Mr. Okpa, if I was talking about infusing other modes of transport into this thing to reduce the pressure on the roads, but do you think it's workable, especially seeing the attitude of the traffic participants as well?
Well, I will say it's possible, but the way we've been moving is now road to Babylon, 1 step forward, 10 steps backward. We move this way, we move that way. The gains of the past. I told you that you mentioned about the ridership on the waterways in Lagos, Jakande time, then it came down, then their own time, Fashola time, it went up, then it came down. That's the way we've been going, like a drunkard. And
what is the reason that high cannot be sustained?
Yeah, a lot of things are politics of it. You see, somebody is on something, and a new government comes in, is not interested in that aspect.
Okay.
Then the general coordination, which Dr. Ekpa mentioned, we discussed it when I was with her in Owerri a while ago in a workshop, that you have the Ministry of Works constructing the roads. You have Ministry of Transportation arranging the traffic management on the road.
On the road.
You see, the two sometimes are working in silos. Those in the Ministry of Works are interested in how to award contracts and how to do that. Whereas those in the transport, we have to pick the can. So we roll the ball, the bobbin of the cotton, then it drops. Then another person,
It unwinds.
It unwinds a lot. So, but please let me fly through, because I mean, our job as a teacher of the field is not just to describe this thing, but to offer some snippets which will give you an insight into the whole thing, and maybe one or two people will pick where we are now today. For us to be able to bring the whole thing together, number one, I want to tell those in the ministry, in the everywhere constructing, this is now the dry season, especially Lagos. Because there is a paradox about when people shout. People shout in the rainy season, and that is the time you cannot construct. So this is the time for everybody that is in the road construction, anything, to double. Look, if you have to borrow, cripple your gang to go all out now. You have about, for Lagos, you have about 3-4 months now left. You know, we are relaxing. But when the problem, people start shouting, is when you can't construct. So you just be wasting money. Let Lagos not relax, or anywhere in the country for that matter. Number two, we need our enforcement, which I'm mentioning about demand. Enforcement is a World Cup in Nigeria, but we have to be systematic. And for Lagos, they really, because they bought about, 10 vehicles just about 2 weeks ago, 26 motorcycles, so that they be going around the state to enforce vehicles, don't trade on the road, don't park on the road. It's going to be very overwhelming. I advise there should be volunteerism in transport globally in Nigeria now, that the Chartered Institute of Transport Administration, of which I'm a fellow, is having a package, because we suggested that it's not me. LASMA cannot handle all this problem. I can only 10 vehicles and 26 motorcycles do to enforce discipline. There are people like you that sometimes you just, when you get to a junction, you feel ashamed and you feel you can do something, but you don't have the authority and you don't have some basic knowledge of what to do. So we suggest now that we need to bring volunteers to the system nationally, who we train. FRC did it. They have special
marshal.
We
Yes.
should escalate that to every town, every place. Then too, the major problem, especially Lagos and many other places, are this National Road Workers Union and all that. Their problem. But embedded in that problem, their solution. Involve them in the enforcement of the rules, especially where they are trading. You know, they collect every dime of their money at the junction, at the motor park. Bring them in to enforce the law, because it will pay them, it will increase their
revenue.
Their revenue by their turnaround.
Yes.
So you have to bring them in. Then, of course, we have to get the local governments. The local government throughout the country has been sleeping, and they will be one closest, especially as far as maintenance is concerned. They will know when that thing is a pimple on the road before it becomes a dungeon. If you travel around the country, I'm afraid to travel now these days, you will see some young boys patching only one part on the road. They will stand there collecting money. But if there is organization from the local government, okay, from kilometer 1 to kilometer 10, there must be no pimple on this road, and we'll give you 5,000 at the end of the month. We must bring in local government to be able to, because if you don't maintain your roads, you can't just make, for example, like Dr. Ekpa said, and Ekpa said, if the only thing you are concerned is constructing, the road will soon degrade. So we need then, in LASU, for instance, there is something they are funding, a small research, because when you involve them in the maintenance, you must also teach them what material to use. We are working on material that everybody, it's not everywhere you can get bitumen. Some material they use to patch the road worsen the situation of the road. So if the local government, bring the local government in. Then of course, water. In Lagos, if I must mention, they said they are bringing 16 boats by the end of this month to start running different routes, which he mentioned. Those routes are viable. I advise they should roll out. They should not wait. They have 6 that are already on ground, the Itesiwaju, the Pakudo, let them roll it out. Let it be operating. Then it could be taken as a pilot. It's not when you have 25 boats or ferries that you will roll all of them out. For example, we don't know, they said that the Ladi Balogun, who is the MD of La Ferry, said by the end of this month, but where is the schedule? Where is the announcement? What are the routes? We need that. But that's also generally, then in Newa, which he mentioned, they are asleep. That is inland to take what I mean to Warri, to Lokoja maybe. So then of course the rail, we are trying to get back to where we were. You know, most of us went to school outside our region in rail. Our parents will put us inside the rail and you go to Sokoto, go to Kano, go to everywhere. So, but we are getting back there now. So but like people are saying, we need to maintain these wagons and these engines, because what we are doing is we are sourcing all the variables of this transport mode to China especially. Then of course we talked about the PPP. PPP is another World Cup. It's so easy to talk about it, but transportation is not a quick money-making spinning machine. Government must provide. I told him I was in Atlanta, and they were running a monorail. For a year, they were not collecting money. I went to the manager, I said, you are not collecting money. I went there. I was there last month. I was there. He said, look, we are just testing, and our major objective is to move workers around to make sure they get to there. We are getting some little taxes here and there in order to maintain. So transportation is not something that the major focus should be money. So of course the last one which I want to mention is the what is that now?
We will come back to you. So try and remember it. Let's go to Dr. Ekpa. Dr. Ekpa, I know that you live in Abuja, but I'm sure the circumstances will probably be the same, because we also hear that there's traffic in Abuja now, not like it used to be. In the late 70s, we had something called Park and Ride. And let me use Lagos as an example. In Lagos right now, there are these beautiful blue and white buses, which if we're told that we can park and ride them, a lot of us will happily ride in them. They are beautiful, they're clean, they're air-conditioned. Why are such thoughts not going through the minds of those planning our transportation system?
Thank you. It's not that the thought hasn't been going through the mind of those planning the transportation system. As a matter of fact, that's what we live with every day. The truth of the matter is that there has been, within the last 4 years, a reconsideration of the imperatives of introducing rail transportation. I wish to just limit myself, starting with this particular bit, that there has been a focus for us to expand the thinking around mass transit administration and mass transit provision, actually. So government, through the ministry, has prioritized the rail sector for now. And I know, being one of the core planners, that we are now thinking about very, very seriously and reconstructing, reforming our processes for introduction of mass transit with the big buses, or the park and ride, what you call the park and ride. As a matter of fact, mass transit administration and mass transportation is what helps the economy. Government cannot achieve its economic recovery growth plan without, and that very happily is why government has looked at transportation as one of the key enablers and objectives and a pillar, all in one fell swoop, thinking around the issues of transportation. And so for us, intermodalism, which Professor was just discussing now, is what we're looking at. But you see, it has to be faced. You look at the fact that the financial power of the federal government hasn't been as it was in the days past because of the dwindling resources we're having from oil. And happily, too, we are now looking at other forms of financial empowerment for government itself and then for the people. But then what we are looking at is that rail for now, because rail actually offers a wider leverage for carrying people across the country. And, but then for us in the road transport mass transit content, we are now discussing, and that is within the purview of the Honorable Minister of State for Transportation. And so we're looking at it, and we are discussing very, very seriously with international partners, the World Bank and the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, is helping us. And we are partnering with our colleagues in Ministry of Environment to ensure that this park and ride thing, your format or program you're looking at is introduced in the country. We're even looking at introducing green transportation. What we mean by that is solar-powered vehicles, especially the tricycles. The buses we're thinking about already with the United Nations Environment Programme and the World Bank. And the ministry itself is discussing with international partners and investors to bring into the country buses that are climate change compliant, and we are introducing this at the national level. But beyond that, really, as you well know, it's a constitutional issue, as my brother Opeifa already said. We have the exclusive and concurrent list. The federal government has its limitations when it comes to mass transportation. So we are actually encouraging states. And what the ministry has done within this 4 years of this administration is that we have a forum of transport commissioners with whom we discuss. And we have also an annual national transport conference. We started this in 2016, and it goes on every year. And we are taking these issues. The issue of mass transit administration is very critical, and provision of buses. And let me also use this to highlight the fact that the federal government itself, through the Federal Executive Council, is aware and absolutely concerned about the fact that for us to reduce the impact of climate change in our environment, the buses we're having now, most of them are not at all climate change compliant, and the emissions that are coming from them are destroying our health as a people. So the Federal Executive Council in May of last year did pass or did direct and also approve the National Action Plan for Reduction of Emissions. And the replacement of buses across the country is one of the key initiatives. So there's something being done. And my brother, Opeifa, also did say that there is need for BRT. Yes, that is a major area. But you see, that responsibility is that of the states. States have to look at transportation as a development agenda. You cannot achieve anything in your state, because for someone to move from the farm to the market, it is a route. And our statistics shows that about 95% of Nigeria's transportation is on the road. And effort is being made and would be made even more. But you see, that's where the private sector comes. International investors have shown interest. And we had the federal government in bringing into the country investors during the Focus Lab implementation of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. And these investors are coming, and but you see, it's a bit slow, but action is on for them to come into the country and improve upon our mass transit by establishing or by owning and developing for the country facilities for manufacturing and assemblage of these vehicles. Government is thinking, and I must say, in the last 1 week, the Honorable Minister of State, Her Excellency, distinguished Senator Gbemisola Saraki, has been discussing with different groups of stakeholders on how we can improve the mass transit sector. And I can say with all conviction that this administration wouldn't leave Nigeria or these 4 years wouldn't pass us without us seeing something substantial and impressive on the management of the road transport system, including the
Dr.
park and
Ekpa, if
share.
I may come in here, Dr. Ekpa, you've talked about the plans of government and all that. Do they also include the mindset of the traffic participants? Because that's another side of it. If you build the road, you provide the rail and all of that, and the participants are not thinking in line with what government is thinking, would those provisions be effective?
No, the government through the ministry and in fact all the sectoral partners are discussing with the participants. What you mean participants, I believe is the road sector stakeholders. We have a robust road sector stakeholder platform. And NATO written, NURTW, even the Comoran, all of them, there are so many in the country. They're being coalesced now by the ministry. There is a collaborative effort to bring them together. We are speaking at the very highest level with them and informing and training. In fact, next week, we are lucky to have the United Nations Institute for Training and Research bringing together the managerial level, the directorate cadre of all the sector, whether it is private sector, public sector, or even the development community together for us to look at collaborative leadership towards discussing with the stakeholders. The challenge we have is that, like I've said already, over the years, no direct concern was on the management of the road. We have spent billions on construction. But what we haven't spent on and what we haven't really discussed around is the issue of managing the road. And I must thank the Federal Road Safety Corps for its own effort. And we are partnering very seriously. And also, I need to say that, as a matter of fact, we were not in the past number of years. It's only in this administration I've seen and we have researched into where the stakeholders at the government level, both at the states and federal, are now interfacing with conventions and how to about road management. So we are attending and being members and being taught and being coordinated.
Okay, Dr. Ekpa, when we come back from that break, we'll come back to you again because that part of the individuals, you've talked about the NURT and all the other associations, the individuals like Alera and I, like Perfy and I, who are using the road as well, our mindset, because many times it's the elite that caused some of these traffic jams. And Mr. Okpa, if I can either concord. We'll be back in a moment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. And Dr. Ekpa, I'll begin with you again. The part about the people, the road users, they are also participants, commuters, those that are being carried in vehicles, even the elite who are driving. There is the elite that drives one way most times. I mean, the bus drivers, the NURT guys hardly do go one way, or the motorcycle riders. It's the big man, in quotes, who has an escort vehicle that goes using his siren and forcing people off the road just so that they can get to wherever they want to get to in time. Sometimes they're going one way. So are those people being included in the ministry's plan or in your department's plan to change or manage the traffic situation in the country?
Yes, thank you, Nyota. Yes, we have a plan. Principally, I must tell you, the whole thing borders on attitude. And there is a way to solve this. First of all, enforcement. And we have laws. In the Federal Road Safety Act, we have punishment. We have things that ought to be done. We have rules, and we have compliance expectations from the citizenry. But I don't think we have actually tackle this directly. Sometimes Nigerians, and we know that Nigerians, even the elites and the lower level of our society, have a way of taking advantage of situations. We know that when we had the war against indiscipline, the same Nigerians complied. But today, you have, even when the road safety organization officials are trying to coordinate the corridor, you see that people are fighting them. So, but the way to go about it actually is strategic communication. And what do I mean by that? That we have to have, or we are thinking, and what is our challenge actually is the funding. And I believe that now that we have mass transit being looked at very closely, having done a bit on the rail sector and the maritime and the rest, that we're going to develop messages and programs for the enlistment of the citizenry. Because the message you give to the woman who is selling on the road and the one you give to the person or the elite who is driving roughly are different. And we have used messaging in this country, apart from the fact that the media had also helped. We've used messaging to change attitudes. And Nigeria today has been saved from the challenge of HIV/AIDS because of communication. And so I believe, personally, not just because of my background and on knowledge of the fact that strategic communication is what we need to handle this. And then secondly, the issue of congestion. We've already said it, that we need to decongest the road by having shared transportation. And that would come through buses or BRT, even along the corridor of Nyanya Maraba that is stated. You know, most of our Nigerians living in Abuja are coming from Nasarawa State. Mararaba, Nyanya, and the rest of them. And everybody wants to come to town with their vehicle. So if we had BRT, and that is something I believe this very hardworking Minister of FCT is thinking around and about, is the fact that we can decongest that corridor with BRT and buses that people just hop onto. We go to London, we see all these things in the other countries. We have tram cars, we have all manner of things. But I must say, and I say that with all my conviction, that there hasn't been adequate attention at road management. If we had put 1% of the funding we put into construction, on management, on communication, on enlightenment, on engagement, on redirection of the mind of Nigerians about the way the road is used, we would have not only had safety, we would have had better coordination of the road. And then the other thing, which I also think, is that the nature of the road itself. Prof did say something. Our intermodalism is not working, or would be working, I believe, with what we're doing now in the ministry. And what are we saying? Having a coalition, a conversation, a synergy between the Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of Works and Housing. Our colleagues in the housing sector, they had, in the works and housing sector, develop or construct roads. They do not discuss with us. Let me use, for instance, Cotonou. Now, if you look at the video that we just saw, everybody is using the main track, the main corridor. There are two corridors there, the right and the left. And the two flanks are supposed to be for vehicles. But you see, there is no passage for motorcycles. There is no passage for tricycles or other forms, and there's no pedestrian highways. So people are meandering in between the vehicles. So, but if you had a situation where the road was so organized in such a way that everybody have their own passage, a way of moving, everybody moves on his own corridor, then you won't have a challenge. So going forward, and I am glad to say we are now discussing with our colleagues in Works and Housing. Now, we are the ones who are going to these international meetings. And we are the ones who are interfacing on how the roads are managed on urban transport and mobility issues. And that there is need for us to sit with our colleagues in the other sectors to say, oh, this is what we have seen. This is how we think we can. It's not just about engineering. It's about people management. It's about contact. It's about how people use the road.
Thank
So,
you, Dr. Ekpa. Let's bring the conversation back to the studio. Mr. Kwekwa, we're talking about those who actually use the roads. Do you think that there's enough consequence for action? And I'm talking about consequence of actions by road users. I commit a traffic offense and I don't get punished today. I commit the same tomorrow. I don't get punished. It becomes a way of life with me.
Thank you. Before answering that question, let me just say this, that there are 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and it's now 2030. Now, if we don't move fast, Nigeria may not achieve anyone. And the sector...
Not even one.
Yes, the sector to go. I'm not being a bad prophet, but you see, if you don't take the transport sector, because out of that 17, at least 10 will not be possible without proper transportation system, without proper traffic management system. 2, let me also say, the pattern of behavior, because I'm going to enforcement now, between the rich and the lower or whatever is the same. What is missing is 3 things. Enforcement. 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 The laws are there. However, there are also constitutional misunderstandings. That is why the National Council on Transportation, since I have been very strong with it, is a group of commissioners of states, all federal agencies, all state agencies, shared by the Minister for Transportation, and you have the Permanent Secretary of Transportation as the technical team lead, has proposed consistently that every state of the Federation should establish its traffic management agency. FRS is not a traffic management agency. The police are no longer doing that function to the best of what we expect. So what you see in most states is that VIOs doing it. So you need to have a traffic management agency in every state of Nigeria. What I mean, LASMA, DOSMA, ESMA, what is it, DESMA. In FCT, it is the VIO who does it, and in Kano, it is Karota. Now, 2, the National Council on Transport also proposes that every state of federation should establish its motor vehicle administration agency. That is where you get your driver license. So you're talking of the road, the user, and the vehicle. So the motor vehicle administration will control the vehicle and control the user. Right now, it is the Board of Internal Revenue, so it is a revenue issue in most parts of our states, controlling the user and your driver license. So if you have those 2 agencies, the traffic management agencies and the motor vehicle administration agency, who should not be allowed to manage traffic, should not be allowed to enforce. It is the other way in most of our states of the Federation. Because this is not a federal responsibility. It is the state that will take care of its trust. So that is why you see people say the fear of last mile is the beginning of wisdom. And some people don't want to come to Lagos. Those transporters, those truckers, they're afraid of Lagos. They say because last mile will pick you. VIO will pick you. So if you take these 2 agencies out of Lagos, for example, you will not be able to move. So we are missing enforcement 1, enforcement 2, and the former one-time commissioner, federal commissioner for works, Alhaji Femi Okunu, will always tell me every time I say, Kayode, enforcement, enforcement, enforcement. So what we need, what we should be doing, take the Lagos model, take the Abuja model. It's working. Now, you saw Atta, the tax team chairman for FCT Traffic Man, he's a journalist. The minister brought some of them together, and they went on the road. I was in Abuja recently, and the road is cleaner because the enforcement capacity was increased. And the vehicle inspection officers were put on their toes by the Honorable Minister. Just go out and enforce the law and take away anything that is not safe. So we need to also understand that enforcement is not punishment. It's for those who don't want to enforce, who don't want to obey. And people should not be seeing this enforcement officer, last man, calling them a girl. or trying to harass them. They are working on a law. So for enforcement to operate, there must be the statute. The agency must be properly created so that it doesn't face legal challenges. Two, there must be a law to guide what the agency will do on the road so that they don't misbehave. And there must be processes, like she said, strategic communication. People should know what the law contains. So I want to say it again. We should go back to that National Transport Council, which I believe we've not had one in the last 2 or 3 years, which is not good. It should happen every year, where all participants, all stakeholders, both the Okada rider, the Marua rider, the community people, all the professors, all the commissioners, all the federal and state agents come together at a venue and they discussed all these issues we are discussing. So we should go back to those resolutions. I am privy to know that there is a compendium already of those resolutions. When you put those resolutions to force, you will be able to address. But let me say in conclusion, until Nigeria go back to the transport sector, transportation sector, we may not achieve any of the Millennium Development Goals because 10 to 13 are tied to that sector.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing this moment with us. This is where we have to leave it. Mr. Okwefa, what's Lagos State planning for all these Okada and yellow buses? In 10 seconds.
And Keke.
Let me drop that last one thing, which I could not drop last time, which wrap up the transport policy that should, this document that should sew all this up is lying incoherent in Abuja, the National Transportation Policy, that should spell out all these things we are saying on enforcement, on coordination, and all that. Is draft. Lagos State also did its own draft. It's incoherent. It's not complete.
The Lagos State has one.
Thank you.
It's a review.
Thank you.
It's not.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
I was part of it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Professor. We have to go. We have to go.
On what Lagos is planning to do, I believe very soon, not more than in a matter of today is what 20? No, today is
18.
In a matter of days, the government will speak. I listened to the deputy governor of Lagos State at a program, I think yesterday and day before yesterday. I watched it on TV, including channels, where he made that statement. And I believe whatever the government decides is going to be in the interest of everybody.
All right, thank you very much. Professor Samuel Odeomi is a professor of transportation, Lagos State University. Mr. Kayode Okwefa, former commissioner for transportation and a former secretary of transportation. And from our Abuja studio, we had Dr. Antonia Ekpa, who's the director of Road Transport and Mass Transit Administration. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing your day with us. Sunrise will be back for a moment. Do stay with us.